Welcome, everybody, to Psychics and Psychos. The challenge is, which are we? This is, I am Helen, Irish Granny Helen, and this is Denise Siegel from Denise Siegel on YouTube. And also, I always get the name of your Substack. Let me do it. An Astrologer's Guide to Life on Earth.
Astrologer's Guide to Life on Earth. Yes.
I can't tell you how many times I have to look it up. So
really? Just think about it as like, okay, well.
It's not hard. It's
like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Astrologer's Guide to Life on Earth.
That's one of the confusions. Or I'll say the astrologers look at the galaxy.
It's too long. You can find me on Substack just with my name too. You don't have to do that.
Anyway, welcome everybody, and today we're continuing our discussion of the craziest thing I've heard in a really long time, better known as the Doomsday murders. Sometimes one of the perpetrators, Lori Vallow, is referred to as the Doomsday murderer. Doomsday
really?
Mom, right? And she and her husband, Chad Daybell, were responsible for a whole string of crimes, which we covered in the last video. And now we're up to the point of their trials, plural. They were tried separately and tried for multiple crimes. So it was an interesting series.
Not all the murders probably, but some of the murders, because some of the murders were masqueraded, it seems, as accidental or natural deaths that we think were probably not.
Well, I think that's, you and I agree on that. I think other people who knew them well agree on that, but it's all alleged and it's all based on your psychic sense of it. My intuition tells me the minute I heard it, I went, oh, come on. Before we start, we should make the caveat that we're not psychiatric professionals. We are not psychologists. We're not in any way professional. We are armchair psychiatrists, and we're not diagnosing anybody. We're giving our opinion. So big capital letters, allegedly. So shall we start?
Sure.
Okay. So Lori, let's do her trials first, which were all on, most of them were on YouTube. And if you want to be amused some evening when you have nothing better to do, watch Lori Vallow defend herself in court.
That's
something else.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Okay. So in Idaho, quickly, May 2021, she was found unfit to try. They said she's not mentally okay. But then in April, a year later, so almost a full year later, she was deemed okay for trial. And a few months later, October 6th of 2022, she got a new defense team and was once again declared unfit for trial. And a month later was deemed okay for trial. So there's this ridiculous back and forth. She pled not guilty.
Can I ask you one question? What was the diagnosis why she was unfit for trial?
I don't know. I think that she was just not in touch with reality. She was talking about her conversations in her cell with Jesus, her pal, and she was not making a lot of sense. On the surface, she seemed completely fine, but as soon as you started to talk to her, it was like, what planet are you on? So
I see.
That's a professional opinion. March of 2023, she was the death penalty was taken off the table. Only for administrative reasons. There wasn't enough time to do the necessary legal reviews to impose the death penalty. And they had new DNA evidence that they simply did not have time to include, which just seems odd to me, but nevertheless, the result was, in April of 23, the Ada County, Idaho murder trial of her son and daughter, Tylee, her daughter, who was 16, and her son, JJ, who was, what was he, 8, I think. Also, the conspiracy to murder Tammy Daybell, her new husband's
wife,
dead wife. Yeah.
Right.
There were no defense witnesses called. They couldn't find anybody to defend her.
Wow.
They had 60 prosecution witnesses. For example, one friend testified that when this friend quit Lori's little religious cabal group, she felt uncomfortable. She did quit because she felt uncomfortable with Lori's beliefs. And when she quit, Lori threatened to kill her and put her in trash bags.
Mm. That's normal.
Yeah. Now I've heard of, difficult family relationships. I think we've all been there. Her sister, Summer, testified against her. She said that she testified that Lori groomed their brain damaged brother, Alex.
Wait, so Alex, the one that killed everybody, was brain damaged?
He was like her.
Right, he was her henchman. Yeah.
Right.
And her lover, probably.
She weaponized him, basically. And
right.
He had
wow.
a very weird obsession with her that went back all the way to their childhood, as
right.
we've talked about. And he had been in an accident and had a closed head injury and was never the same after that.
Oh,
he had
that's
very
right.
poor decision making. His life fell apart. His wife left him. He couldn't keep a job.
That's right.
He couch surfed.
But even before that happened, he was
the whole family.
They were clearly obvious weird sexual things between him and the Lori, right?
Now, Alex is one of the people in her circle who died ostensibly of natural causes, but it raises some major red flags.
Especially since it's the exact same way that her husband died.
Joe died. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She micromanaged a short-term relationship with her friend Zulema and her brother Alex, and then kind of pushed them into marriage.
Right.
And that just shows you how much control both of them were under. 100% control of Lori and Chad. They Chad and Lori convinced Alex that, by the way, I should interrupt myself and say this is all part of the testimony of the people against her, that Lori and Chad convinced Alex that he was a reincarnated warrior of God put on earth to protect Lori. See, this is the kind of thing that got her declared not fit to stand trial,
Right.
And the defense was, well, she was under Chad's control. It really
right.
wasn't her, right? So she was found guilty in May of 23, and in July of 31 of 2023, she got 3 consecutive life sentences with no parole. Before the sentencing, she made a statement, quote, she'd been speaking to Jesus, she'd been speaking to her children and to Tammy, and they were happy and extremely busy in heaven. She says, this is a quote, sure. Jesus Christ knows that no one was murdered in this case. Accidental deaths happen. Self-harm death. She didn't use the word self-harm. I'm using it because of YouTube. Self-harm deaths happen. Fatal side effects from medications happen.
Oh, yeah, especially to that many people that all at one time. That makes a lot of sense.
Whoops. Yeah.
Yeah.
An alternate juror, after seeing the photos of the children's bodies and the wedding in Hawaii after the murders, called her a monster.
Yeah,
she is a monster. In June of 2024 in Idaho, she was sent to Arizona. So they had a court hearing, sent her to Arizona to be extradited to Arizona to be tried there on conspiracy to kill her nephew-in-law, Brandon. Remember the pot shots at him?
Right.
And for the murder of the murder of Charles Vallow, her former husband.
Sure.
She pled not guilty. And her lawyers tried valiantly. They had the whole thing postponed until 2025. So in November of 2023,
Right. I mean, that's when she just went up for trial and decided to be her own lawyer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was not very smart. But anyway.
It's a delight to behold, too. October of 24, her oldest son, her surviving child, Colby, went on YouTube and had a produced on YouTube this phone conversation he'd recorded with her. She said she got her higher knowledge from Jesus. She was on a divine mission, that Tylee and JJ visited her in spirit and told her that Tylee accidentally killed JJ, and then herself in remorse.
Oh, right. That makes a lot of sense.
And
Sure.
Colby, and and keep in mind, all of these people are, if not today, have been in the past extremely devout followers of Mormonism. So you
Right.
hear that echoed a lot in their observations. And her son Colby said, Lori is beyond deceived. I don't know.
Was
I
it
think
Colby? So her dad or her son said she was beyond deceived?
deceived. And
Well,
I'm
that's a very
assuming,
generous, that's very generous of him.
right. I'm assuming that he means by Chad.
Right.
October of 24, her lawyer asked for a competency hearing. These lawyers, they couldn't deal with her, you know.
Well, she is a total psychopath. So
Yeah,
very clearly.
Well, I
Yeah.
think it goes even beyond that, Denise. It's just delusion too, you know.
True. She's also delusional. Yeah. Totally delusional.
December of 24, she was found mentally fit and she was granted the request to represent herself. She said she'd been studying case law in jail.
Oh, I bet she had. Yeah.
This is grandiosity at its best.
Yeah. That's a full narcissistic thing. That is a very common psychopathic thing to do, by the way, to try to represent yourself.
Remember Ted Bundy? Ted Bundy not only represented himself in court, and he loved it. You know, he was a law student.
Yeah, he loved the
Sort
attention.
of a law student. He never went to class, but he loved the attention. And at one point, he proposed to his fiance in the middle of the trial in court.
Right. I remember that vaguely, but yes.
No, that's because I'm older than you are, and I actually watched it. Anyway, the court separated the cases into two trials, and separated her from Charles and moves Charles' case to a different date. Keith Morrison from Dateline, our hero, did an hour-long interview, and I have not been able to watch it because I do not have a channel that gives up-to-date, most recent seasons of Dateline. I have to wait for it to become a rerun, basically. But I've read a lot about it, and I can imagine, because I'm a big fan.
I'll have to look for that. Yeah. So
his interview he described as a combative exchange.
I'm sure. I have to say that for me, this whole case, as it unfolded, and the more you found out about it, to me, of all the murder kind of stories, this is one of them. I think, to me, I found this to be the most disturbing in many ways, more than a lot of other ones, because, it's always disturbing when a mother kills her kids, but usually it happens like, that situation with Andrea Yates, who was becoming more and more out of touch with reality, and her husband kept getting her pregnant, even though he was told, don't do that, because she's got this.
She had postpartum depression, and untreated, if it's severe enough, you become psychotic.
Well, she was being treated for it, but the doctor told her told her husband that if she gets pregnant, it's going to get more and more, she's going to become more and more psychotic. And they knew she was psychotic, and she was not supposed to be left alone with the kids. And that is really tragic and horrible and scary and awful. However, that was a known quantity. She was getting more and more psychotic. Lori Daybell is really creepy to me because she somehow floated under the radar for so long, obviously extremely psychopathic and narcissistic,
a skilled manipulator,
totally manipulative. She looks really good. She knows how to get what she wants and fits into a certain community, finds her way through it, and uses people and does all these horrible things. And then her kids are not babies anymore. Her kids are, old enough. She could have said, she could have fucking put them in foster care if she wanted, or given them to a relative. And
there was an ulterior motive there.
Right, the money.
Yeah.
The money.
Yeah.
But just shows you how deviant she is and how psychopathic she really is.
Yeah.
That she could have her own children, and she's not like Andrea Yates, who's, yes, she's delusional, but the delusion comes out of her religiosity, or I'm not even sure if it's real or not, to be honest with you. I I don't know. Part of me wonders. I think that the religiosity comes out of a sense of specialness, that she's sort of kind of glommed onto this idea of being special, and it feeding her narcissism and an excuse to do what she wants to do. I really don't feel like it has anything to do with any actual spiritual calling or spirituality. I think she saw the blocks of control that are in all kinds of religious systems and used them to her advantage. That's what I
Well,
think. I think she's a
I
real.
wouldn't disagree with you, but I would say this. I think it's a Gordian knot that probably can't be untangled. We're looking
Right.
at generational familial abuse. We're
Right.
looking at sexual perversions. We're
Right.
looking at not only the physical family abuse, but the mental manipulation that goes along with the patriarchal family structure and patriarchal religion, right?
Right. Right.
We're looking at somebody who is psychopathic, allegedly, and it runs in the family. Her parents
Right.
were both odd. And
Right.
then we're also talking about a situation where one of the players has a closed head injury and personality changes because of it. We're
Right.
looking at greed. We're
Yes.
looking at religious manipulation,
Right.
grandiosity. I mean, how do you parse that? It's all tied together. And then in steps Chad Daybell, who,
Right.
oh, what a prize. We'll get
Well,
to
yeah,
that.
right. No, he's a loser. But the thing is, the Chad Daybell also seems like he suffered from the same psychological construct of using this religion to feed his ego, bolster himself, make himself the center of it, and he's so special. And then the two of them together just were like, hydrogen and peroxide, just made this horrible gas that killed everybody. They just were like so toxic,
Yeah.
that combination.
Well, they both claimed a direct line to God. They were both
Right.
spoken to, had conversations with God. I can think, I'm not going to get political here, but I can think of somebody who claims the same sort of communication with the heavens. Do you know who I'm talking
Yes,
about?
I know who you're talking about.
Okay. All right. Let's move forward.
Can I just say one more thing on this account?
Oh, please do.
One more. Anybody who says that, anybody who says they have a direct communication with God, in my opinion, that is a red flag of being a narcissist. And I mean, there are people who are psychic, there are people that are intuitive, there are people that have spiritual gifts, but they should not be saying they have direct communication with God, because that is all about grandiosity and right.
It's the context. If you are somebody who is actually spiritually gifted and you're taking the things that you feel you're learning with that connection and applying it with the intention of helping people in a non-narcissistic way, that's one thing. If you're proclaiming from a microphone in the center of government that you have direct contact with the heavens,
Or even being in a religious context saying that you have direct
yeah,
communication with God, because you can say the divine field, you can say the universe, the spiritual beings, but to claim the Godhead as your direct line is
or any of his prophets.
or is just insane. I think
it
it's
is.
just
It
totally
is.
beyond the beyond. Anyway,
Well, there's a level of grandiosity which is
yes,
diagnostic, right? Okay, let's keep going.
yeah, it
So
is.
let's get back to my obsession, Keith Morrison. I love
Okay.
Keith Morrison. So he said about this combative exchange that she maintained her innocence. She blamed her daughter for the son's death. She
Wow.
said that Jesus showed her that she and Chad would be exonerated and released.
Mm.
She planned.
Gotta
This
be
is
wrong.
my favorite. This might be, to me, the highlight of the entire story. It's not just a story, but the highlight of the whole thing. She told Keith Morrison that after she was released and exonerated, she planned on going on Dancing with the Stars.
Wow.
I'm
Wow.
sorry, it's not funny, but okay. March 31st, 2024, Charles Vallow's defense case began. And simultaneously, she was in court defending herself. She told the jurors that their job was to protect her from the state. She said that Alex shot Charles in self-defense, and her witnesses were all stricken from the record. They were not allowed. And let's see what
So
else.
she lied.
Oh, well, because she didn't really tell the prosecution ahead of time. There's that law that they have to, fully disclose what their defense is going to be. You have to give evidence and a list of witnesses, and you have to provide the opposite side of the argument with all of your ammunition. I mean, that's just to be fair, right? Lori conspired with Alex to murder Charles for the insurance money to marry Chad. According to the prosecution, this was their case. She got Alex to stage the death of Charles, and their brother Adam. So Alex and Lori had a brother named Adam. He testified, quote, "No doubt she conspired with Alex to kill Charles. Charles had been planning to confront her about all this stuff." Charles had been planning to go, we talked about this, going and talking with her about everything that was going on, his concerns for her mental health, the trouble in their marriage, his concerns for the children, and he was planning on recording it.
Wait, her other husband's name was Charles? Isn't that Charles Daybell? I mean,
Chad Daybell. Chad Daybell.
Chad, okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting confused.
I know, it's easy. No, Chad is her co-conspirator and
right. Charles was her other. Okay.
Charles was the husband you can see on YouTube body cam at night in Arizona.
Right. I didn't realize. I forgot that his name was Charles. It's so close.
Charles Vallow.
It's weird.
That he had intended to record the conversation with her, and his plan was to take it, not to the police, take it to the Mormon church, because while all this was going on, she was high in the women's hierarchy of the Mormon diocese. What are they called? Stake. She led women's groups. She was this shining example of Mormon motherhood.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And Charles was hit with 2 bullets, one while he was actually already injured on the floor.
Right.
Lori had no evidence, no witnesses, but she did give a summary. She said, "Don't let the prosecution turn my family tragedy into a crime." So she was found guilty in April of 2025, just, this spring.
Not long ago.
Yeah. She filed a motion immediately for a new trial. She was denied. And she received a message from Kay. Kay was the grandmother who had been taking care of JJ first. And the one who got the ball rolling with the wellness check on JJ.
Right.
She sent Lori a message and said, "We gotcha. And you're not the smartest person in the room. Everybody's going to forget about you." And that was all she had to say. In March, the trial for Brandon began. This is the pot shot at her niece's husband. What the goal there was to kill Brandon, have the niece inherit the life insurance, and she had the niece under her thumb, completely bamboozled.
Right, she could take the money from her.
That's right. That's right. So Lori fought with the judge, and this is on YouTube, and it's really great. It's great stuff. Courtroom drama at its best. She had an argument with the judge, and he had her removed from the room.
I saw that. I saw part of that. Yeah.
So she got found guilty, of course, for conspiracy of murder, and got another couple of life sentences as a result. So that's her.
Good. She deserves it. She's a monster. She really is a monster.
Yeah.
I think it's, there are some horrible monsters. I would put Richard Ramirez up there, going into the middle of the night and hacking people's breasts off and stuff like that. He's a monster. And Richard Speck and Gacy. And she is up there with just how monstrous her crimes were, and just how completely no sense of guilt or remorse about murdering her own fucking children. It's disgusting and disturbing. And I wish that woman would have told her, instead of saying, "No, you're going to be forgotten," is, you're going to be seen as the monster that you are, because you're a fucking monster, because she's a monster. She is just an evil, evil human being.
I agree with you, but I don't think it really matters. I think she's living in her own little la la land, and I don't think that anything anyone said. I mean, it's all been said. Denise, they've already said it. So many trials, so many accusations, and it's just water off a duck's back with her. It's weird.
What do you think? I mean, what did the psychiatrist say
Oh,
was her intention?
I
That's what I would like to
we're
know.
going to get to that.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of information about Chad, and then we'll get to that because
Okay.
it is really interesting.
Yeah.
So
it is.
Chad's trials, he in Idaho successfully separated himself from Lori so they could have separate trials. And remember I said there was new DNA evidence and they didn't really have time in Lori's case to admit that evidence. Remember I talked about that? Well,
Yes.
at that point, they were together still. At that point, Chad's lawyers successfully argued for a separate trial to buy them time so they could avail themselves of this DNA evidence. And also because they felt they were mutually antagonistic in their positions. In English, that means they're blaming each other.
Sure, of course.
December of 23, his lawyers moved to remove the death penalty because he was manipulated by emotions and sex, and it was denied. The death penalty was on the table. They did the jury selection in April of 24. Then the trial, the prosecution said, hey, Chad was a man motivated by sex and power and craving significance, and he saw his wife and children as obstacles. The defense said Chad was a religious man lured into adultery by this vixen, you know.
Oh, yeah. Nice try.
Alex had a history of violence. 2 of Chad's children testified for him and said that Tammy had health problems, but there is no medical record of her having anything wrong with her. And the day she died, people who worked with her and her friends said she was fine. She seemed a little preoccupied. And
she probably knew about the affair by then.
Well, she did know about the affair, and she'd been called and blocked. I forget who it was who called her to tell her, and she blocked him. I think Charles called her to tell her, let's discuss this.
That's right. Yeah. I remember you saying that.
However, there is suspicion that Chad approached her with the suggestion of a polygamous relationship, including Lori, and that was like the last straw. The prosecution had 3 witnesses who worked with Tammy, and they all said she was fine. Her doctor said she was fine. Doctor also testified. Chad coordinated the murders, and this is the prosecution talking. Chad coordinated the murders and gave a religious justification for them. The defense said that Lori and Alex were the culprits, that Lori was motivated by greed and Chad was manipulated by her and was likely to be her next victim. That part I would not argue. I could see her turn on him.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and get the money for him too.
Right,
but
exactly.
A big insurance policy on him and kill him. Yeah.
This is where I strongly recommend, personal opinion, I strongly recommend that if you, as an individual, take out life insurance in the name of your spouse or your children or a friend, don't tell them. Okay. Now.
Well, I mean, the other thing is she would very likely, at a certain point, get tired of Chad and probably do something like that. It might not have happened immediately, but it would have probably happened eventually.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If he opposed her in any way, of course.
Yes.
And you had 2 opposing egos that were going to jockey for power.
But you could say the same for him. He could have just as easily done the same to her. Yeah.
Just remember what happened to Tammy when they did the autopsy. She was suffocated. Okay. May of 2024, she was found guilty in June. I'm sorry, he was found guilty in June. He got the death penalty. Now he's in the maximum security prison in Idaho. He also got 15 years for fraud and has to pay $4 million. I don't know if I wrote this number correctly. I think it's $430,000 in restitution. Tammy's family, Matt and Heather Daybell, who are his brother and sister-in-law. The Boudreaux family, which is the family of Brandon, who was shot at, and Adam Cox, the other brother of Lori, all did a joint statement.
Lawsuit. Okay.
Yeah, statement, and
Statement,
said that
okay.
they were relieved. So you
Right.
ask about the psychopathology. This is fun. This is really, really interesting stuff. So jump in, because this is going to be a good conversation. So, Chad, and now I should probably say that this is not coming from me. This is research I've done. I have six of these legal pads of research that I'm not going to read all of it, but I did go through 6 legal pads and condensed it from psychotherapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, forensic experts on YouTube. I read this book, which really gets into the nitty gritty of it.
What does it say? When
I'm sorry. When
the moon turns to blood. Oh,
which
wow.
is some kind of religious thing.
I see.
I forget. So I condensed all these opinions and just put out there what they all had to say. So this is not me talking, okay?
Right.
So the belief is that Chad, Lori gave him the sense of being attractive that he lacked, his ego, you know?
Yes. Well, for good reason, because he is not attractive. Yeah.
I think he's the epitome of the word. I mean, people who live in glass houses, but he's the epitome of the word schlub. Okay.
Yeah, he is a schlub.
We're talking about a patriarchal, hyper-religious family. They were constitutional conservatives, and actually, this is kind of true on both sides, both of their families.
Yeah, I bet.
They're into extreme misogyny. He was resentful of his role in the family, like his birth order. He felt he had to take out the trash, Denise.
Oh man, that sucks.
His father heard voices.
Okay, so he is a little crazy in him. Yeah.
His father, Chad, was obsessed with death at an early age after a 3rd grade friend died suddenly, and he was annoyed by the grief of families. Remember, he worked at a graveyard. Well,
that's right.
It wasn't just him. His brother, his cousin. It was like a family. It's like when you get a job at McDonald's, and then when an opening comes up, you get your brother to come work there too. You know, one of those sorts of deals.
Right.
They were not just grave diggers. You have to be fair about it. He was obsessed with death, but they were landscapers. They mowed the lawn. You know, they set up for funerals.
The cemetery, right?
And he expressed frequently he was annoyed by the grief of the families who came to the funerals, to the burials. They just, irritated him. They got in his way. So he worked at this graveyard. He I'm trying to read my handwriting. He went to Brigham Young University at the same time as this job. It was his part-time job. And he wrote a column for the BYU school newspaper called Grave Circumstances. So clever. He was very bullied when in school. So was Lori. Was very bullied. As a child, this to me, this is one of the most disturbing things. I don't know. There's something about this. It's just 1950s B-level Hollywood horror movie. He enjoyed killing bees, and he kept account of how many bees he killed.
Why bees, of all things? I mean, bees are very helpful.
You're thinking like a normal person, I mean,
I could see cockroaches or like some kind of weird infestation.
I will say, in his defense, in Chad Daybell's defense,
or mosquitoes.
Say, as a child, I was terrified of bees because I lived in Southern California and we went barefoot a lot. And I can't even tell you how often I got stung by stepping on a bee, And if you get I always had kind of a localized allergic reaction.
Right.
And the amount of discomfort.
It's very painful. Yes.
It's itchy. It's incredible. I mean, if you have an allergy, it's incredibly itchy. So I was terrified of bees. And so in his defense, that's why bees.
Okay.
Then he claimed, that he had near-death experiences, but he didn't claim it at the time that they allegedly happened. He claimed it retroactively when it fit into his publishing.
His narrative.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He was hyper paranoid. He had obsessive religiosity and obsessive worldview. His basic religious beliefs were driven by fear. He began to claim an access to the spirit world and had claimed precognitive dreams. The books he wrote were so dystopian and so violent that the Mormon Church wouldn't print them. They wouldn't publish them. One of the reasons why he started his own publishing company. He claimed he had visions. He predicted the end times.
Did
The
anything he
voices,
ever wrote or say have any resonance with anything in reality at all?
you mean, did he predict something that happened? No, they're
Yeah,
waiting for the end times, Denise. They haven't come yet. Yeah.
I thought we were kind of in them, but anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, he was predicting, the end of days, the apocalypse, the whole 9 yards, the whole,
I see. Okay, so
70
the
years of
religious kinds of,
tribulation, all that stuff.
right,
Yeah.
right, like a
I
prophet of old.
forgot to mention that voices told him to stop torturing bees and killing bees, so he stopped. And then
Okay.
later, the voices told him to move to Idaho. Remember Rexburg?
Oh, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
The inland Salt Lake City. Anyway, his ideas took on a life of their own when he met Lori. And I think I'll just toss this in here. Reading about this, a term kept coming into my mind, and I looked it up, and actually it is a good description of a folie à deux.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
which
folie à
is
deux. Yeah.
Craziness of two people.
Right.
Both of them were problematic separately, but when they got together, it was synchronistic.
Expanded. It was synergistic.
Logarithmic.
Synergistic, crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
He told his brother that he believed that he, Chad, would be Jesus and had been the Holy Ghost in 3 former lives.
Of course. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
He had no empathy. And like I mentioned, he
Right.
was bothered by the grieving families. He had no empathy. He described Lori to people. And now, mind you, he started describing her at his wife's funeral.
Right.
He met this widow.
Right.
Childless widow. And now they've known each other for quite a while at this point. They were well into it by this point, but he's presenting it to his circle of family and friends as, oh, how sad, that we're here today to bury Tammy. But guess what, folks? I'm engaged to this great widow with no children, and who he described publicly as hot and loaded.
Wow.
Oh,
wow.
He was controlled by his family even as an adult. I listened to 4 hours of interviews with his sister-in-law, Heather Daybell, married to his brother, Matt. They were the ones who originally moved to Rexford, Idaho.
Right.
It's 80% Mormon. They really liked it. They're really into it. But Chad calls them up and says, guess what? I'm moving the family to Rexford. They lost their minds. They went to Rexford to get away from his family in Utah.
Right.
So controlling. They were all controlled by the family, even as adults. They were all controlled by their church. He had a fear of death and a fear of his own mortality. He had a problem processing emotion, a lack of empathy, and the family did not discuss emotions and had no empathy. The family kept secrets. They didn't communicate. They couldn't face hard truths. A lot of this comes from sister-in-law Heather, who, being outside the family dynamic, recognized immediately what was going on. And she is very educated and very knowledgeable. It was interesting to hear her take on the family. Lori's psychopathology, it gave both of them celebrity. There was, as we said, sexual dysfunction and inappropriate behavior, no boundaries at home. Her father was a sovereign citizen. And if you've ever seen, there are many court cases, go to Law and Order channel on YouTube and go to court cases. You'll see judges dealing with sovereign citizens.
Right.
Lunatic. Her father was criminally versatile. He was a tax fraud. He was anti-government. He pretended to be a lawyer. Never been to law school. He just pushed himself off as a lawyer. He was hyper-religious, but hypocritical at the same time. His parents were volatile, neglectful of their children, always preaching about religion, and yet had numerous adulterous affairs on each other. And obsessed with appearance. If you remember, we talked about that. They would take hours to get ready to go anywhere because everybody had to be completely perfect.
Presentable. Right.
Right, right. Lori learned really young to use sex and emotions to manipulate people. She got what she wanted that way. Her mother was not emotionally okay. Remember, her mother had an eating disorder and
Right.
was unavailable. Lori had a narcissistic need to be the center of attention. She was a cheerleader. She was a beauty queen. She was possessive of her boyfriend when she dumped him, and then the cousin got involved with him. Remember that? She lost her
Yeah.
mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She talked inappropriately about sexual topics in front of much younger children, even as a teenager. She was always acting out as a teen sexually. She married very young.
Very likely, all these are signs of being molested as a young person.
Absolutely. 100%.
Mhm.
Yeah. The whole family.
Right.
She was vengeful and volatile. She was capable of presenting a sweet veneer until she was crossed, and then watch out. She was raised with control at home, control at the church, and it has been proven. Stephen Hassan talks about that in his book, The Cult of Trump, that patriarchal control from an early age can change the structure and the biochemical function of your brain.
Right.
Which is why you end up with people, adults today, looking for external control.
Right.
Tell me what's right and wrong, because I don't have the capability on my own.
Right. Right.
She was obsessed with appearances. She liked the veneer of having a happy family, but she hid the truth. They were not okay. So the question is, was she a psychopath? And from our armchairs, I think we've made our assessment, but this is according to experts who have not sat down with her, but these are the observations that they've made.
Sure.
She had a sense of superiority.
Mhm.
She felt the rules didn't apply to her. She
Mhm.
felt victimized. She
Mhm.
neglected the emotional needs of everybody in her life, but especially her children.
Right.
She had pretending to be kind, but always needing to be the center of attention. She had dulled responses to things like death and illness of other people.
Mhm.
Its perfect example is that body camera from Alex shooting Charles. She
Right.
comes back from a trip
She had
for
fast
no food, and it was,
right.
oh
She could
yeah,
care less.
and she
Yeah.
giggled like, oh yeah, we just moved here. The neighbors must wonder. Yeah, the cops
Mhm.
were like, okay.
Yeah.
What else have we got here? Okay, so Folie à deux. I looked it up. I did a little research. I don't remember doing this, but I did did a little. That's diagnostic. I don't remember. It's an induced delusional disorder. It
Mhm.
means the madness of two. It's a shared psychosis, a shared psychotic, delusional, psychotic association. It's rare, but it's also a contagious insanity. These are all terms that are thrown around in reference to it. Your delusional belief is transmitted from one person, the inducer, to the other person, the induced, in a closed relationship. So the inducer is the source of the delusional belief, and the induced adopts the belief, and it seemed to go both ways with them.
Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Right.
It can spread to others, and this is what happened with her little group, her cabal of
Right.
7 women.
Mhm.
There's a special type called folie simultanée. My French is so bien. So this is 2 people in a folie à deux who actually do what we just talked about. They influence each other equally. So they
Right.
trade roles, inducer and inducee.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's the psychopathology of what's going on. We're doing really well for time. We talked
I would
about
say that I would say to a lesser extent that probably describes a lot of people's marriages, but not in a psychotic way, that you influence one another and have your own little private language and private kind of universe, but not to this level.
Can we talk? No. Okay. Okay, so We're trying to keep this at an hour, and it's looking
Yes.
good here right now because I just have a little bit left, which was the interview that I heard with Dr. Stephen Hassan, who is regarded as an expert on cult deprogramming. And he wrote the book, The Cult of Trump, which I'm required by law to recommend at least once a week on my YouTube channel. It's a fabulous book, and he's a very interesting person. This is his assessment of what he saw. Now, he too, I don't think, met her, but this is what he saw.
Right.
Lori's family is a microcosm of the larger Mormon culture. It's all about patriarchal control. So now what he had to say, and what I'm going to probably agree with, is might step on some people's toes, and it's not meant to be a condemnation of any particular religious belief per se.
Right.
Talking about within this situation. Lori was at war with herself, and he says, as you're indoctrinated, your psyche suppresses your doubts. Lori was primed to be groomed by Chad, and she had a personality shift as she became infatuated with Chad. People saw this.
Right.
She went from being, the great middle class mother to totally abandoning her children. And then, how that worked out. So the Mormon church prioritizes control, public reputation, secret keeping. This is according to Dr. Hassan. Secret keeping, and it's a culture of extremism. It has a history of these kinds of murders. They will say that these are extremist cults of Mormonism that have broken away. But this behavior,
it's part of the culture,
right, over and over,
right,
under a what's it called? Under a something moon. That book, Under the Banner of Heaven, is a good book about that. He says that people tend to give power to leaders when we feel helpless. And that's what happens in a patriarchal authoritarian structure, either family or religion. And when it's both, it's intensified, that you're made to feel inadequate to make your own decisions. You're encouraged to hand over your agency to leaders or priests or what is the term they use? Elders. And as you get higher in the hierarchy, they get older and whiter,
right,
more domineering. And that the goal is to have people not trust their own instincts.
Right.
Let other people decide right and wrong and tell them what the rules are.
Sure.
So he says in this context, this is what happens when you're raised in, he would describe it as a cult. When you're raised in a cult, this is the kind of behavior that manifests later in life.
So he did not think she was a psychopath.
He didn't say he didn't think she was a psychopath. His one purpose about his assessment was to talk about the features of cult behavior.
Right. I see what you're saying. So his assessment was primarily from the perspective of the cult.
Yeah.
Which I would say that, and this may make people mad, but it's true. Mormonism was part of a bunch of different cults that came around the turn of the last century, like that were basically sex cults. The Oneidas were one of them. They were another.
Shakers and
the Shakers are the opposite. They wouldn't have sex at all. That's why they died out. But a lot of these cults had this sort of, it was sort of a sexual revolution thing in a way, you could say, on a positive note, that it was sort of people trying to explore their sexuality, but it was under the banner of some kind of religious context because of the time frame that it was in. And, you've got this guy, Joseph Smith, who had a history of criminal behavior and being a shyster, kind of like Trump, and somebody who, had gotten into trouble with the law and sort of finding these golden tablets in upstate New York, and funded by this very wealthy Brigham Young character who wanted to basically, he was married for a while, he was bored, and he wanted some ladies. He wanted to have some sex with some young women. And he funded this cult so that he could kind of have agency to do such things. And I think that was the primary motivation in the start of it, was to sort of kind of do something, in my opinion, find some kind of religious social construct to basically have open marriages,
Yeah.
you know?
If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm remembering this wrong, didn't Joseph Smith make his big discoveries of the golden tablets and the angel Moroni after he was knocked out cold and had a head injury?
I don't know about that. I just know
Okay, I
that
could be
he had
wrong,
a
but
history.
something
I
in the
just know he had a
past.
history of criminal behavior and like low level scams and stuff like that. He
Which is
had a history of
psychopathic,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And
But you know what
and
the I'm sorry, the thread that unites all of this is patriarchal control.
right. And I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't, that people don't find whatever. People can find the truth in any way. You know what I mean? I mean, I know I know a lot of Mormons, and they're very nice people, and they grow up in that religion and they find their spiritual path that way, whatever. It's not but the start of it is shaky at best, how it started. And you can see the DNA in the religion, the hypersexuality and all that stuff. It is still a fingerprint in the religion, with having to have tons of children, and it's all secret, because of course they had to keep all that secret, because they got kicked out of one place and then the next place and then the next place, and they were persecuted for having multiple wives, because it went completely against the culture. And
Well, people recognize the abuse involved.
and you know and eventually the Mormons adopted monogamy, right? And then the fundamentalists, the people who called themselves fundamentalists, went back to the open kind of polygamous tradition. But it has a very, it did start out as a cult. And if you know the religious belief system, which I've had the presentation and I've known several Mormons. And again, I mean, I think you can find your way. It doesn't, spirituality, whatever works for you. I'm not judging people based on this. I'm just saying that it is very unusual. It has a lot in common with Scientology.
That's
Actually,
right.
it has things in common with Scientology. It's pretty sci-fi-y and kind of unusual. It doesn't really seem to have anything to do with, the earlier books of the Bible, other than some of the basics.
There is a great show on YouTube that is a psychologist, and he watches, and you don't see him watching, he talks after the fact. He started out watching that television show, now stay with me here, Sister Wives, which
right.
is about a Mormon guy who has
multiple wives. I watched a little bit of that before.
Wives and about 7,000 children. And this guy, this psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever his area is, he's Dr. Somebody. He and his wife discuss what they've seen. And essentially, they're talking about an example of a narcissist manipulating all of these women with patriarchal control. It's really an interesting take, because I did watch that show in its original iteration. I got tired of it, but
it's boring.
Yeah. But when you look at it in the context of like a psychoanalytic situation, very interesting. I would recommend that. So all I have, I'm racing against the clock now. All I have left to tell you, Denise, is resources. And I think there are some wonderful resources out there. There's so much to know about this. So let me quickly say it out loud, and then it'll be in the transcript of this recording, and you don't have to listen to me reading resources. You can just scroll down to the transcript. So in 2022, Investigation Discovery did a show called Doomsday, The Missing Children. In 2021, there was a Lifetime movie called Doomsday Mom. On Hulu in the same year, Doomsday Mom Murders. And I think that's an unfair appellation, but okay. In 2022, Netflix did The Sins of Our Mothers. And also in 2022, this book came out when when the moon turns to blood. But the real champions of this particular situation, Dateline. So quickly, I'll tell you where you can find the episodes that have to do with it. Season 28, episode 29, May 1st, 2025, What Happened to the Children. Season 28, episode 26, and I think that might have been May 1st, 2020. I can't read my handwriting. Season 28, episode 36, June 22nd of 2020, What Happened to JJ and Tylee. Season 29, episode 40, March 26th of 21, Mommy Doomsday. Season 30, episode 8, November 12th, 2021, The Doomsday Files. So creative. Season 31, episode 32, May 12th of 2023, The Trial of Lori Vallow, Daybell. Season 33, episode 18, this is the nirvana of Dateline shows. May 8th, 2025, Keith Morrison's interview, The Jailhouse Interview. There are also some really good podcasts out there. Mommy Dearest is the Dateline podcast, multiple episodes. 6 episodes from February to June of 2021, hosted by Josh Mankiewicz, our hero. The Date with Dateline podcast, I cannot recommend this podcast enough. If you enjoy, I'm going to use the word enjoy, true crime stories, if you're, get a kick out of the trying to figure out what makes people tick. The Date with Dateline podcast is 2 women who are many, many years good friends, and they do a rundown of the story. One of them tells the Dateline episode, and then they comment. And they've done it for so many years now that they actually have a whole structure. They have bingo cards that you can get a bingo card, and when the tropes appear in the show, you can mark your bingo card. Yeah. I know.
You only have 3 minutes left.
Doomsday Files on Double Date with Dateline, the Doomsday Files, part 1 and 2. And then I do recommend the episodes on the podcast Hidden True Crime. And this is that psychiatrist, psychologist, and his wife. They do a very good job of analyzing it.
Getting close.
I know. They're coming from a Mormon point of view. Done.
Right. Okay, good. Perfect. All right.
Yeah.
We only have about another minute and a half.
So quite a story. Yeah. And next time when we get together, we're going to do the psychic part of the whole thing.
The astrology. Yeah. The astrology. And I guess you're going to read some cards on it too. See what you can come up with. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That sounds good. Well, I guess we'll leave it at that because we're going to try to keep it under an hour. Right?
The reason we're trying to keep it under an hour is because then we automatically have shorts that are created for us, and I can't do it on my own.
Well, yeah, the secret sauce. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up. And you want to just wrap it up and then we'll pause it.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that it was informative and educational and helped pass the time in these odd days of ours.
Thank you. Blessings to all.
Denise. Always fun.
Thank you, Helen. Yes.
Long before.
Great. Bye-bye.